I talk about prenups, and I always get pushback from people saying that you're planning to fail, etc. But the reality is, what if a prenup would prevent divorce? And I'll tell you why. And this comes from James Sexton, the divorce attorney who wrote the book, If You're in My Office, It's Too Late. And he has done thousands of prenups in his 25-year career. In fact, he was on the Huberman podcast talking about it, and he said that, they're a great source of revenue because very rarely do we get people who have completely different circumstances. We could just cut and paste names and charge a lot of money for it because they're high worth individuals that work with him. His consult for a prenup is $850. So, my prenup cost, I think, $1,000. I don't have the high net worth and I don't have any complications. But there's a couple of things he pointed out. First, and I agree with him 100%, if you can't have this hard conversation, you shouldn't be getting married. Do you think you're not going to have hard conversations? You can't have these type of discussions with your partner? And he made an interesting point. He says, you've already got a prenup, even if you don't do one. It's the state who has decided how assets are going to be divided. Not you, not her, the state. How many government-run offices have you thought, man, I wish they would run a bunch more like this because it's so efficient and I love how they do it and I'm in and out and it's great? I'm guessing not many. So, understand, if you don't have a prenup, you're entering into a contract, because that's what marriage is, a contract, that could be changed by parties not involved in it. The state and politicians can change all of the regulations. They could make it lifetime alimony after 7 years of marriage. You could do nothing about that unless you have alimony waived in your prenup. Okay? And the reality is, a prenup creates discussion. What do you want things to look like? It's also part of my estate planning. If you have assets and you're getting married without a prenup, you're kind of foolish. I don't want to hear you're planning to fail. No, I'm not planning for my marriage to fail. Actually, Melanie didn't know she was already in my will before the prenup was done, before we were married. I bought life insurance to make sure she's taken care of. It's more expensive when you're my age. And the greatest statistic that James Sexton talked about that validates a prenup prevents divorce, he's done thousands of them. He can only think of 5 people that he's done a prenup for that have got divorced. So I don't know statistically what that is, but if he's done 2,000, it's a fraction of 1%, because they've had these conversations ahead of time. And it's a required element in matrimony if you have assets, especially if there's a disparity in assets. Because do you really want the state to be in charge of how everything is handled? You can't do anything about child support. But the reality is, I don't want the state dictating what happens if something were to happen in my marriage, and everyone wants to go, yeah, but we're not planning on the marriage failing. But what if your partner develops a drug habit or alcohol or dies? How does the estate get handled? There's a lot of things that get handled neatly by a prenup. So you can tell me how I'm planning to fail. You're wrong. But the reality is, you've got to have a prenup. It's plain and simple. All right? We'll catch you guys later. See you next time. Hey, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe and like button, and let's talk some more. If you got any questions, shoot me a note. My email's down there.